everyone, and welcome to our Heavenly Parent Holy Community Oceania Hundoke. And today we have Doug and Mary Moriarty presenting. Today is Sunday, the 5th of September and the 29th of July in the 9th year of Chongyal Guk. Let's begin by offering a bow to our Heavenly Parent and True Parents, Chariot, Kyombe, Paro. And let's recite our family pledge, both in Korean and English. Thank you.
가족멘세 6. 천일국 주인, 우리 가족은 참 사랑들을 중심하고 하늘 부모님과 참 부모님의 대신 가정으로서 천을 움직이는 가정이 되어 하늘의 축복을 주변에 연결시키는 가정을 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다.
Family pledge number 6. Our family, the owner of Chongyal Guk, pledges to become a family that moves heavenly fortune by embodying the Heavenly Parent and True Parents, and to perfect a family that conveys heaven's blessing to our community by centering on true love. And I'd like to ask Reverend Suntek Lim, if you could offer the opening prayer, please.
Okay, please join me in prayer. Our most beloved Heavenly Parent, true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind. We thank you this morning and giving us a good rest and another day to begin at this time. And already we have come to the season of spring here in the Southern Hemisphere. And we just have 4 months remain in 2021. Heavenly Parents, time passed quickly, and our true mother, who is still with us on earth, have an urgent heart to want to realize and accomplish your ideal and your dreams before she go. And this is the golden time, as True Mother described, and calling sons and daughters to go forward together. And truly this is a time of the age of the children, where we are to rise and we are to fulfill our portion of responsibility at this time, to aid our true parents to realize all the dreams and all the hopes that they want to accomplish during this time. Especially heaven has been searching and longing for a nation that can stand tall and that can be the nation that you can claim as yours. And that is why true parents have been working throughout their life in order to find that nation and to live in that nation, even for a day. And that nation is the nation of the fatherland, the nation of Korea. And true parents have been working towards to be able to realize the unification of that nation. Heavenly Parents, we are moving forward, and we know True Mother also is going into different fields and encourage, especially to revive the Christian foundation in America and throughout the world, and now preparing here in the Pacific area, Pacific nation, to launch the Pacific Christian leaders, to call upon Christians to come together and to build upon this foundation to support your providence at this time and to move the providence forward. So we as sons and daughters, we know what we could realize, especially your spirit is moving and you are moving the heart of Blessed Central Family. And at this time, important time, we know when we are able to support and unite one another, we know miracles can happen. And truly, you are encouraging us and going a step of us and leading the way to guide each of our Blessed Center family and support and guide our sons and daughters and to raise and prepare our sons and daughters for the future. We thank you this morning. Let's refresh ourselves with your words and guide us, open our hearts to receive and hear words from our brothers and sisters. Thank you. I sincerely pray and report in our name, Suntek and Likalim, Blessed Center family. Aju.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And before I introduce Doug and Mary to give their presentation, they've asked me to show a video clip, and it's about a volcanic eruption that occurred on the Caribbean island of St. Vincent, and it occurred not so long ago in April, and it was actually two eruptions, once on the 9th of April and then again on the 12th of April. And this is the island, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is the area that is the island that Doug and Mary are the national messiahs of. So I'll just share the screen again to show this video. Okay.
Now, the Caribbean island of St. Vincent has been rocked by a huge explosion as the La Soufrière volcano fired a plume of ash and hot gas into the skies. Officials said it was destroying everything in its path, amid fears for the safety of some residents who have refused to obey orders to evacuate. The series of volcanic explosions over the last few days have disrupted food and fresh water supplies, wiping out forests and farmland. From St. Vincent, Kenton Chance reports.
In Waliabu, a community in the volcano safe zone in western St. Vincent, a man uses the time between ashfall to clean up around his home.
Never seen nothing like this before. Heard of it, yes, but never know it would have been of this magnitude. Didn't expect it to be like this, really. Expecting something like just blow and then it's over with. But the kind of, the ash, that is one of the biggest problems, really.
On Friday, after decades of inactivity, La Soufrière volcano erupted, spewing clouds of dense ash almost 10 kilometers into the air. In the danger zone, the sky was turned into night by the ash in a matter of minutes. Tens of thousands of people have had to leave everything and evacuate. The eruption knocked out power and covered homes in a white layer.
The visibility is really low, and now as I speak to you, it's just after 3 in the afternoon, but we know this because there are stones literally raining down on the vehicle. This is actually a very scary experience.
Cars were left stranded, wheels stuck in the ash. The town of Barley, like the rest of St. Vincent, is covered in volcanic ash. While residents of the town clean up around their properties, at a nearby shop, this farmer enthralls evacuees. He spent 2 nights on the flanks of the volcano after it erupted.
Coconut trees break down. I'm not about all the coconut trees there. All. You see birds on the ground. Yeah, me I tell you, it don't look nice.
Thousands of persons heeded the order to evacuate Thursday evening, hours before the eruption. Many arrived in Barley by ferry from Chateaubriand, the town closest to the volcano on the west coast.
Here in this central leeward town of Barley, many of the residents of Chateaubriand who fled the erupting volcano have found a temporary home in this community. Here they recount their experiences, even as they face the ashfall so far south from the volcano.
However, in Georgetown, located in the danger zone on the eastern side of the island, this farmer has refused to leave. He passed Friday night enjoying the local liquor to the sound of volcanic pebbles falling on his roof.
Do you mind if I ask you your name?
My name is Supercat.
Try your best to be safe, but maybe you should follow the order and evacuate.
I'm following the orders.
Evacuate.
To evacuate. But when the time comes,
After all the morning they're talking about, this morning wasn't a nice morning.
I was there. When I talking about the man still like a chat passing, it's sort of hey, I can be back every marijuana.
I'm wrapping them up. Because we're trying to bring down a little marijuana, because we're not in the marijuana life, but we live in Chateauway and everything, so we're trying to make our livelihood to the best.
Officials say that this eruption of La Soufrière is likely to be worse than in April 1979. 3,700 persons are in 85 emergency shelters and thousands more sought refuge with relatives and friends. With the eruption coming amidst the economic hardship brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, St. Vincent and the Grenadines could be in for a few rough years.
And Kenton joins us now live from St. Vincent. There have been a series of explosions. Kenton, how much longer are the experts saying these eruptions could go on for?
Hi, good evening. That's the question that Vincentians are hoping to get answered. But what I can tell you from what we've heard from the experts, things are really bad in the north of the country. We've seen some images coming through in the last few minutes, and there is just a scene of devastation. And as we are on the eve of the 1979 eruption, which comes tomorrow, Vincentians are certainly hoping that this would end very soon.
Kenton Chance, thank you very much.
Unmute and keep it unmuted.
Okay, so that's the video. Let's give a warm welcome to Doug and Mary as they do their presentation.
So good morning, Reverend Yutaka and Reverend John and all brothers and sisters. We're very happy to be here this morning to tell you about our journey in St. Vincent. Mary's going to open up on how it started.
Yeah, Douglas and I were in the Long Island Church, working with all the different activities there. And we were also participating in a prayer meeting in New York City with a lady called Lady General Kim. And was during one of Mother's speaking tours, and Lady General Kim was having a prayer condition along with doing 120 bows every evening to support True Mother. It was during one of those prayer meetings that this is Lady General Kim right here, and together with Jim and Mimi Mitchell, they were living in the same center. They're National Messiahs to Marshall Islands. Yeah. And anyway, it was during that prayer meeting that Lady General Kim said to Douglas, who was sitting at the back of the room, he said, "Stand up. Why are you here? Why aren't you in your country?" And she said, "Don't you know you're supposed to be a National Messiah?" You know, he was completely shocked. We didn't think, and she was speaking to me also, and I was sitting down the front, which was sort of, somehow she realized we're a couple. Anyway, there was a lady that was in that prayer meeting that was in the office of
Headquarters office.
Lancaster, Betty Lancaster. And Betty Lancaster had muttered under her breath, "Oh, we need a few more National Messiahs. There's some nations that don't have National Messiahs." And so this lady had said, well, Lady General Kim had said at the prayer meeting the other night that, and she explained to her what she had said to Douglas. So anyway, a few days later, we got a phone call asking if we wanted to accept that mission. And Douglas said, well, we're not qualified. First of all, you'd have to ask our regional, the continental leader, Dr. Jun Young Park, whom Douglas had worked with for 3 years. So anyway, Reverend Park said, fine. So we ended up, so there was 4 nations that didn't have National Messiahs. So 5 nations. So we pulled St. Vincent. 4 African and 1 Caribbean. We pulled St. Vincent and the Grenadines out of the hat, and the 4 of the other nations were in Africa. So yeah, so that began that was the beginning of our journey. Thank
And next slide.
you. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So it was necessary to find out as much as we could about St. Vincent. The National Messiah Providence actually began 2 years earlier in 1996. And we had friends that became, that received that mission and went, around the world. One in particular was a good friend, Ralph Oppenheimer. He went to Central Africa, Central Republic of Africa. And all of a sudden there was opportunities to go to things that I didn't have the such an experience with, like 40-day workshops directly with True Father. So I was finding out about St. Vincent, and it was rather in bad shape. At the beginning of the National Messiah Providence in 1996, there was a lot of challenging circumstances in the country where it culminated in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, with the prime minister of this nation publicly and with humiliation kicking out every member, all representatives of true parents. And he called the other nations. So 6 nations altogether had 120 Japanese sisters kicked out of the nation, and they had to go with the Korean and Japanese National Messiahs, or American and European National Messiahs, to take some time in either go back to their country or go to New York in USA, or go to Dominican Republic. So there was a kind of chaos, and it started in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we had to really find a way to solve it. Our Japanese sisters were explaining to us that you can't just go in there and talk about the church. You even take your ring off, go in sort of undercover. And so we had the opportunity to go and pray. And we knew that this is something we really need to pray about. So I had an amazing experience here at this 40-day workshop in Kodiak, Alaska, with Daniela's brother, Umberto, Ralph Oppenheimer, and myself. Every night at the end of our 40-day workshop, which comprised of continental leaders and the National Messiahs from the USA and Europe, the 3 of us went out every night. We prayed for a half hour, and it was just a very deep, moving experience. And I was trying to lay a foundation for going to St. Vincent. And even just meeting with many of the people there, hearing their experiences, was all very exciting for me to experience. So there is where I began to make the determination of how I would arrive in St. Vincent. And the first thing I would do is pray. So True Father always said, when you have a new mission and you go to a new area, go to the very highest point, and from there pray, pour your heart out. And I had this beautiful opportunity to do that. It didn't come about until God's Day. Mary at that time was inside, was in Korea. And then I went and I left on December 28th, and planned to offer my prayers on top of the highest place in St. Vincent, which was La Soufrière volcano. And it was a privilege, a beautiful experience. Everyone was leaving the whole area and going down to party for New Year's Day in the whole country. So there I was, walking the opposite direction up the volcano, and then I had a chance to pray. So with that understanding of all the problems that had been explained to me, there was some disunity. It was hard to bring together people from different cultures, and we certainly had a share of that difficulty. So the problem was based on disunity to begin with, and I'll leave it at that. But
I just want to say something. That volcano, we went up during the day, like at a later time. And there's huge crevices, and when you get to the rim, it just goes straight down and you can't even see the bottom. Douglas was up there at night, all night. And he got to the top at night. So I'm just grateful he didn't end up in the crater of the volcano.
Okay, so
and plus it was freezing cold and he had to.
I talk about that though.
Oh, you're going to talk later about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So when I first, I'll read because it's hard to remember all these facts. Matter of fact, the one thing about this being in St. Vincent is that there were just so many synchronistic experiences that came together in life, and because of time, we had to, put it away, and we can't even present it. But some of the things were from the 1980s. I was a friend of the Garifuna Indians, which are about 1 million people. They were coming from St. Vincent. I knew the two brothers who, around 1994, they left UTS to go to this small country somewhere and to save it. The goal was to bring a nation to God. And I was in line with the thinking, start small, from the very beginning. And I also would share with Reverend Pock about my enthusiasm for a small nation and the Caribbean. And I was suggesting that the Caribbean could be part of the North American providence instead of part of Latin America and South America. So when I arrived, I was met by one member living on the island, and she was an enthusiastic woman, very lively, a lawyer, and the only female lawyer in the nation. And I was going to stay in our home. We went there and talked enthusiastically until late. And the next morning, I drove with her into work near the National Courthouse. Her husband, who she told me about months before, many phone calls, walked up to greet me and was happy as well to talk with me. He was wearing a full-length white robe with a turban and a bright red sash belt, which held a machete of great length. It was not a sword, but a proper working tool of the nation. Over several weeks, over several previous weeks before I got there, he was standing squarely in the center of town in front of the courthouse and Parliament. He held in his hand the Divine Principle book and would shout out the Messiah's name, Reverend Sun Myung Moon, to the entire town. And the name of Haile Selassie, the great emperor, as he listed them as saviors of the world. So rather dramatic watching that. Anyway, he was at most of our coming events, and he was a very strident and opinionated, and he was also correct on many of the nation's problems. Very much like his wife, but with one exception. His wife definitely was part of the island's leadership, and he was not in that league, but they loved each other. They wanted to make their marriage work. I had to leave out the story of the very profound experience where his wife and her sister had actually sat with true parents in a Uruguayan conference, and that was the beginning of their inspiration to call the nation to repentance. It's just that in their enthusiasm, they went about it with writing articles like "bow or die," and they were just very strident and very strong. So to go back to him, he had a love for the nation and wanting everyone to know about God's providence and Reverend Moon. His difficulty rested with the use of marijuana as he medicated himself with it when things got tough at home or on the street. He was bouncing about a bit. Marijuana and no employment continued for him, as would for most of the national population. The wife is a VIP, but not the average member. She is an authentic, pragmatic, very expressive personality and a capable person on the VIP level who has in her own way worked for and made some very, very good things possible in St. Vincent. So with that, yeah, you can put that up there. That's good. So staying and meeting with them for a few days. Then finally the time came for me to go up to the mountain and It was December 31st, my God's Day, 1999, on top of the Lucifer Mountain. I'll read this also because there's too many different parts that could easily be forgotten that I think are important. So, do you have the next slide of the stick? Yeah, okay. So in true Father's tradition, to pray from the highest mountain, I went on the first trip to what's called St. Vincent and Grenadines, known as SVG. So I went to SVG alone when Mary was in Korea. I arrived a few days before God Day. I'm sorry, I have to reread some of this. On December 31st at noon, I began the climb from the baselands and over towards the La Soufrière volcano. Its last eruption was 1979, the year the St. Vincent and the Grenadines became an independent nation. So they never had missionaries sent to it because they were sent out in 75 and the nation was founded independently in 1979. So people are kind of proud of that coincidence that when they reached independence, the volcano blew. The warm, sunny day of a Caribbean winter became cloudy just before dusk, and there was little light but for my torch lamp. It was much cooler when I reached the top and at the very rim of the crater around 11 p.m. I organized the things I brought with me, then read from True Parents' words, preparing for making God's Day prayer for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So the opportunity to pray in such a circumstance and having time to reflect on every point of concern that over the months I heard about in prayers led me to feel very close to God and True Parents. I began at 12 midnight, I prayed, and I began pouring a bottle of holy wine into the crevices of the volcanic edge, which would lead into the streams below whenever it rained. I mentioned True Father and True Mother's names in the blessing prayer. And at that moment, the full moon, which was hidden by the overcast, the clouds, suddenly appeared, surrounded by a halo circle, then subsided, then quickly reappeared, once again surrounded by a halo circle. And I understood God recognized this moment. At least symbolically, the blessing of St. Vincent began in heart and mind. The love and intentions were made and offered, then it must be substantialized in actual doing. So my heart was really quite full that evening. The rest of the night was amazing because evening winds came and removed the island's heat and all my own body heat as well. It became freezing cold and I only had a thin shirt on. I sunk down in between the crevice cracks as deep as I could, covered myself using the fabric of my umbrella I had used and needed before the climb for both the sun and the rain. I was absolutely freezing. My skin had been winter white, so I needed the umbrella to even keep myself from being in the sun too much. I was winter white from New York 3 days ago, and the burn would be bad if not covered. But now I was dealing with actual freezing, and to my complete surprise, I was happy, but I spent the entire night pounding my heart to make sure I did not freeze to death. It's really true. God was showing me that this is serious. It is life and death serious. I never forgot this and would do my best. Repentance and gratitude have led me like two pillars in the desert ever since my attending the 40-day workshop with Reverend On in 1993. So there I had this walking stick and I'm horizontally carrying out the walking stick as Father had established a tradition also, and mountain climbing. And oh, there's more. Position, okay. So this is a big part. The flag, go back to the flag. The flag really captured my imagination when I first saw it. So it's a big part of our little story today. Using the geometric design, okay, of the St. Vincent flag, I received inspiration before even arriving in St. Vincent to carve the story of Genesis on a walking stick during that trip, and spoke of God's, and I wanted to use this stick actually to speak of God's original ideal, the fall from that ideal, leaving mankind without God and not knowing God, and the repentance required to restore not just one individual, but one nation to that ideal. I carved along the whole staff this geometric message from top to bottom. And on the top frame of this carving, I painted a blue diamond on top of the original St. Vincent flag. Atop the lower 3 diamonds as the last design to represent a restored 4-position foundation, nation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and what the flag would look like. And I wound up using that oftentimes talking to people. My thinking was that Mary and I could meet leaders of the communities and give them copies of this carved staff. We were looking for elders in the community, chiefs, indigenous leaders, people of special leadership that would really enjoy understanding how to explain the value of their nation and the time that they have. So in 1999, in that time, we came back and forth to St. Vincent many times, and we reached a lot of people, but we had I couldn't find anyone of that particular caliber to speak to in the time that we were there, until what happened. We met through the newspaper and read an article by this wonderful person who was speaking along the lines that I needed to understand. And we made an appointment with him, and it was part of changing everything. We had to get the sisters back into the nation. So we needed to meet the prime minister. The prime minister who kicked him out would never meet us, you know? So even though we had a lawyer that knew a lot of people in the island, we weren't getting to the prime minister. So we were doing, at one point, things like we were doing prayer condition that this prime minister would change his mind or be removed. So we did a prayer condition of 120 days, specifically with all the Japanese sisters, that this prime minister must be changed or removed. On the 120th day, he resigned, you know, of that prayer condition. And then he was punched in the head on his way home on a ferry, you know. So it came to an end, and we had a succession of prime ministers that finally changed, and they allowed us back in. The one who really allowed us back in was also a communist, you know. He was called Comrade Ralph Gonzalez. So in 1990, this is meeting this other special person I want to go back to now. In 1999, we were able to make an appointment with him, and it was we spent at least 2 hours with him to start, and began giving him books with our testimonies and offering trips to conferences in the USA, and really just became friends in so many synchronistic stories that happened. He was Parnell Campbell, Queen's Counsel, president of the National Lawyers Association, the very man who dropped out of Cambridge University to return to SVG. And he solely wrote the first constitution in 1979 for this nation. So he remained, didn't go back to Cambridge. He remained in SVG and became like a living founding father, hosting a weekly TV show, The Law and You, and is like the statesman of the country. Everyone expected he would be the prime minister eventually, but he refused it all throughout his life. He never did it. And here we are in the office with him, and it was just kind of amazing. We walked in there with this stick, and it was all carved with the geometric thing, and I gave him an explanation of what it was. He was so moved by it that he stood up, reached out his hands, and received the stick from us. And then the next time, we spent about 2 hours with him, but the next time we came to his office, it was there on his trophy wall, right in the very center of his trophy wall. So he really appreciated the story, you know. And
I just want to add one thing. Douglas did the original design of the stick, but then he got a professional carver to carve out the proper one, the one that he gave to Parnell
it's
Campbell.
true, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Popo.
What happened?
Popo.
Popo, what's Popo?
The experience with Parnell Campbell, that synchronistic experience.
Oh yeah, another experience with we went out to this our member Kay and Parnell Campbell and myself. We went out to have dinner, and I was there by myself in St. Vincent. So we went out to a French restaurant to have dinner, and he was treating us. And so he asked me, what did you do today? And I said that I was walking around, and I came upon this building that was had a memorial plaque to King Jaja of Niger. And I just went through the whole thing, and I was just absolutely amazed. You know, it was also an art studio and a military prison museum. And I told him all about King Jaja, and he's looking at me like with great surprise, you know. But it was one of those synchronistic experiences, because in 1981, when I was in CARP, I studied Africana Studies. And the book, the major book that I remember from that was the King Jaja and the river, King Jaja of the Opal people on the river Niger. And I read, and I loved this book. It was really interesting. And it was about a man who was born a slave in a Nigerian tribe, but you know, he was able to rise to become the king of that tribe over a lifetime. Once he was a king, he also ran into the British gunboat diplomacy and treaties, and the British were negotiating with him, but he was a tough negotiator, this chief, and they didn't like what he was asking for or wanting to see happen. He was a very righteous man, this king. And the British just imprisoned him and sent him in exile somewhere, and took him, removed him, and made a treaty with some other weaker person. So he was in exile. Turned out that he was exiled to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that was to my surprise. I had no idea where he was exiled from. So here I am at dinner telling him about this. And it was just one of those endearing things that happened that were very synchronistic, because he was so moved by that. Again, because his moniker, his nickname is King Jaja, you know. So he couldn't believe that I knew about this. No one knows about King Jaja. So it was that kind of experience at the table. And it was one of the many things that just brought us closer and closer together. So I'm at the Two Flags, the walking stick.
We've almost run out of time.
Okay. Oh, you're kidding. Oh my God. So anyway, there's the most important thing is that over time, he wound up going to our conferences in New York in the next year and a half. And we didn't see him for a couple of years because we moved to Australia. We actually had to stop our mission because we were absolutely bankrupt. There was no money.
Actually,
But just let me say about
the Constitution.
That's what I'm going to say. So it turned out that the good part of the story is that when we were in Vanuatu, we spent 3 months. I was there 3 months. Mary was there for 40 days working for the inauguration of UPF. And after that, our Japanese sisters from St. Vincent provided the money for us to travel immediately to St. Vincent, which is what we did. And then I organized a conference there. We organized a conference at a building that had been really refurbished. That was a dream that I wanted to see happen for St. Vincent. And we gave the first public presentation inside their old theater. And it was quite a nice venue. And the national leader there she wasn't a national leader at the time, but she didn't even get a message to this Parnell Campbell to come. So what happened was Parnell arrived, and I got in touch with him, and then he arrived, and he was late, and he got up to the podium to talk, and he apologized for being late, half the conference was over or even more. But he said, I just wanted to let you know that I was about to meet with, some very important people that came from the UN to meet with me and to discuss the matters. And I canceled or I postponed it or short, I can't remember, made it shorter. But then he stood there at the podium and he said, I just want to let you know that I have for 3 years been given the mission to prepare the second, a more refined constitution for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I am very proud to say that this work is now finished and it's being offered and it will come to a vote. And this constitution that I was able to write is based on the teachings of Reverend Sun Myung Moon, the divine principle. And it is my honor to have read these books, to found this person, this man, and I hope that the nation can receive this constitution, and that's the main point of that conference from UPF. It also turned out that his wife was very much opposed to his connection with us on her religious grounds in opposition. So that was at work. And once we were gone, we never were able to reach him in office or at home again. And it turned out that when this volcano, he was 75, when this volcano erupted in April, 10 days later, he passed away at 75 years of age because he had health problems and a heart problem and the dust inside the community. So he's there from the spirit world now in the army of God. And that's just the story of Parnell Campbell. You know.
Yeah, just briefly, we've run out of time almost, but we printed out 120 Pure Love pledge cards and distributed them around the island. And you can see all the pledge cards in that photo.
Oh, yeah, show the pictures, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And people really appreciated that. And we told them they could use it as a bookmark. So, yeah.
That helped us meet a lot of people.
We met a lot of people through giving that out. We went round to every town in the nation and every village. These are some of the people from St. Vincent, absolutely beautiful people. That also, we will stand in wonders tour. So we spoke for 40 days all around every little village and in the nation. And this was experience with True Mother, was the inaugural meeting of IFWP in the Caribbean on the 15th of May, 99. We could have a personal experience with Mother during Hundake. And so everybody gave a testimony regarding their nation. So Douglas could give a testimony about St. Vincent. And later True Mother started talking about a husband and wife lovemaking. And then she pointed 2 fingers on one hand to Douglas and myself and said, there is a couple here. At that moment, I felt incredible energy come from her directly into my heart. So much energy and love. True Mother also spoke about the difficult situation with members having to leave the Caribbean and said we were in a tunnel, but there would be, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so it was really a profound experience. So, yeah, that's it.
So we had a chance to talk about this in April when Reverend Yutaka one time asked us, have you ever faced a dangerous circumstance in your mission? And Jeffrey Fires stood up and told the story. He raised his hand and he told the story of being hijacked or kidnapped in his vehicle and held at gunpoint and as a hostage. So then there was Jeffrey Fires. And then that was in Africa. And ourselves in St. Vincent and Grenadines, we had an interesting experience where Mary and I, we shared this in April, but with Hundake morning service. But again, Mary and I shared about nightmares and terror over visiting the northern part of St. Vincent, which we had planned, where 4 European tourists were killed just a week before we went there. It is a sort of lawless area with a mix of good people and criminals. Drugs is the primary industry underneath all the tall produce of banana trees. So my immediate thoughts when I saw the volcano blow in St. Vincent is that, I'll read it here. Mother Nature has just eliminated one of the most drug-infested areas in existence. The entire north half of the island on St. Vincent is now not redeemable for decades. The modern nation of St. Vincent is basically controlled by Colombian and Venezuelan cartels, increasingly so since the rise of Comrade Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, who we're grateful for allowing us officially to have all the missionaries return to St. Vincent. The cartels do keep him flush with cash for himself and to win every election as cash spreads about all the poor, uneducated youth. That is how he remained in power for the past 20 years when no decent person wants him there. There is no other economy at work in SVG since 9/11 with the drop in tourism. He accomplished doing something that could never be realized in 50 years, which is an international airport. It's going to mean a lot for tourism in the future for St. Vincent, but actually it's been built with drug money. The people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines were famous for rising at 3 o'clock in the morning to pray. They knew better than to have this kind of leader. Their moniker is called the Land of the Blessed. It's like Land of the Morning Calm was given to Korea. And well, he got reelected again in November 2020, and he then went full communist over COVID in the last year. He has been and was losing the people support, and now he has lost all the land as well up in the north. This is the major source of income for the entire nation. Of course, there's income in this business, but this is the major one, drugs. So this eruption is a great blessing if ever there was one. It has brought to a close the making of a narco state in full blossom. It really is a blessing. The good citizens have prayed for this to end, and Mother Nature heard their pleas. For 25 years, the nation has heard about Reverend Sun Myung Moon by one means or another directly. This country was losing its soul, and it turned into party town, irregardless of the extreme poverty. Man is not meant to live by bread alone, nor by partying away the days, months, and years. Vincentian people, in large part, came from Africa. Millions more were exiled to Central America and then immigrated to New York. I'll be done soon. They must be victorious over evil and return to the faith of their ancestors. There needs to be a national repentance. This disaster will sober up people. I believe it to be a people of destiny. They are rooted from within the heart of Africa itself, the very Congo. They came by slave ship to be shipwrecked there over 200 years ago. They're in the millions now throughout New York, Central America, and St. Vincent. They themselves prospered there, joining bloodlines peacefully with indigenous Indians, and were never conquered by colonial nations. So there's something, there's something at work here about this volcano. The economic terror of a narco state and the marijuana is finished at this point. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug and Mary. Thank you. It's an amazing story. I'll just stop sharing for you. There you go. And I'll remove the spotlight and then bring gallery. So yeah, just one question, just quick before we go into our prayer. You mentioned that the second constitution was based on divine principle, but was it accepted? You didn't mention if it got accepted or not.
No.
It didn't get accepted.
No.
Okay.
It didn't get the vote. It got close. It got close, and it didn't happen. No. Yeah. So
they're still using the first one he wrote.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't. But one good thing though, even though Ralph Gonsalves, he did speak at Father Sangwa. There was two people that spoke from St. Vincent and Grenadines by video. So yeah, so that was a real positive thing. So yeah,
both the current Prime Minister Gonsalves, and the opposition leader were speaking at True Father's Sungma.
So
On
Wow.
video.
Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. It's quite an amazing mission and responsibility. And it is time for us to just go straight into our prayer. So let's pray for the St. Vincent that it ended its tyranny of drug rule. So I'll just share this screen. Let's pray together. Adieu, adieu, adieu. Thank you, everyone. Wow. Thank you again.
Mary Douglas, and today happy Father's Day.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the fathers. Happy Father's Day.
Father's Day to everybody.
Yeah, happy Father's Day.
I didn't realize it was Happy Father's Day.
No, I didn't even.
I didn't. Well, I didn't even know.
Thank you. Nice testimony.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. All right. And see you later.
Amen.
And don't forget, we've got a good Sunday service coming up.
9:30.
That's right, 9:30.
Bye.
Bye.
God bless.
Okay.
Bye.
See you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.